Food. We all eat food. It's essential to our life, our everyday life. But for us Americans, have we been lied to? What is going on with our food? Here we go. We're looking at why the U.S. government decides the color of our food. This is from Cheddar. This will be linked in the description down below. And if you're watching this from a foreign country, which a lot of my viewers are from across the world, you may be laughing at this and maybe even relieved because I assume this won't apply to most other countries. So let's see what the heck is going on with our food here and why the U.S. government, I guess, decides the color of our food. Here we go.
Walking through a grocery store,
kind of weird.
We expect food to be certain colors. Oranges are orange, salmon is pink, and pickles are yellowish green.
Oh.
But what if I told you that this isn't necessarily true?
Uh-oh. Oh, man. Whoa. Okay, the pickles one, I've seen organic pickles, and they're definitely more of like a palish, brownish color. Not brown's not the right word, I'm sorry, but they're like that. They're not lime green like a lot of times you see. Salmon, yeah, very pale in color, not pink. And oranges, I did not know at all could look green. That is new to me.
Unlike candy or cereal, we assume that the color of natural foods
Yikes.
are a result of the environment. But some aren't actually the color we assume. That's because the government plays a key role in determining the colors of your food.
Oh, no.
And for that, we can thank the margarine wars of the late 19th century.
Why? Okay.
In the 1860s, butter was expensive. Without refrigeration, the product spoiled quickly. In response, the French invented a cheaper alternative called margarine. It was made by churning beef tallow, a form of animal fat, with salt and milk. Margarine was a similar tasting spread, but was less expensive and took longer to spoil. But unlike butter, margarine was white, the color of lard. So manufacturers added a yellow dye in order to appeal to consumers' palates conditioned by the color of butter.
Right, wouldn't want to spoil their appetite, right? They're used to butter, it's got a little bit of yellowish golden color, and then you got margarine coming along. Ugh, that looks like white lard. Who the hell wants that? Okay, so that's a small detail that ends up changing our whole modern American world. Okay.
1870s,
Yikes.
margarine was flying off American shelves. Meanwhile, butter sales were falling. So the American dairy industry launched a propaganda campaign against margarine.
How nice.
The campaign published articles citing the use of dangerous ingredients and used obscene cartoons depicting the wretched conditions of factories.
Oh my God.
In 1886, the government passed the Oleomargarine Act to appease butter manufacturers.
Dang.
So I've got my essay written, and I've been working on it for about a week. So now I'm going to show you how I use Grammarly to
permitted the coloring of margarine, but aimed to restrict sales by adding a 2-cent tax per pound, whether it was colored or not. The act marked one of the first instances in which an industry pursued government intervention in an effort to stop competition. But this wasn't enough.
Thus began a long 20th century into the 21st century of government intervention and manipulating markets for a lot of different
for dairy farmers,
products,
and they
for sure.
continued to seek government legislation. By the end of the century, 26 states had enacted anti-color laws that completely prohibited the coloring of margarine.
Oh, wow.
Some states went as far as making manufacturers dye margarine pink so that consumers could discern the difference in products.
That'd be kind of cool,
In
though.
1902, the federal government took it a step further and added a 10-cent tax on artificially dyed margarine, while the tax on naturally colored was reduced to 1/4 cent. In order to avoid the tax, margarine producers started using vegetable oil as a natural dye and even sold color capsules along with the white margarine so that consumers could color it at home.
No kidding. Now that is funny. That is actually hilarious. Wow, that's the lengths they had to go to. Easy color pack. Just need the bag. Oh my God, how ridiculous is that? Look at that, Chicago. Hey, shout out.
White margarine so that
Wow.
consumers could color it at home. The
how
margarine
how
wars were
strong our
coming to a
association is
close.
with things that are familiar, and then of course, I guess especially for Americans, like things with color. Like, wow. I mean, it makes sense, but it also is kind of like, dude, really? Like you can't eat margarine because it's white, not yellow. Like, you know what I mean? It sounds kind of
Food
crazy.
dye was just beginning.
It's weird.
In 1906, the Food and Drugs Act banned the use of harmful coloring without labeling to conceal damage or inferiority. The government certified 7 colors for food use, not only because they were considered harmless, but because they were heavily used. However, the use of them was not required. Manufacturers could still use uncertified colors as long as they were labeled in the ingredients. And American
right.
consumers still bought them.
If we didn't use coloring, our food products would look a lot different than they look. It may affect
Wow.
people's decision whether to buy a food product or not. But in addition to that, colors can also be used as a way to enhance flavoring or more importantly, to enhance freshness.
What we see on our plate determines how we taste. During one study by the British researcher J.C. Wheatley in the 1970s, participants ate steak and fries in a dark room. Subjects stated the food tasted normal, but midway through the meal, scientists turned on the lights to reveal that the steak was dyed blue and the fries green.
Oh.
Many participants became ill or lost their appetite merely at the sight. The experiment showed how our brains can alter the taste of food depending on our perception of color.
Just on the color. I mean, I get it though.
In the early 90s,
That would be weird. To see some green fries, oh my God, and then blue steak, it's just so radically different. It's not natural. But do you see the irony in that statement? It's not natural. That is ironic because look at our grocery store shot here. For most Americans, including myself, that haven't been far away from the United States, i.e. me, I've been basically to Mexico. I've been to Canada. But those are still close. I mean, going around the world, I have not, gotten to do yet. And I would probably, like most Americans, be in for a shock because I'd see most likely natural food that probably has some more natural colors, not these bright neon colors like Americans would be used to seeing. So that statement is funny because, that's not natural to see blue steak. Well, yeah, it's not natural to see pink salmon either.
1900s,
so, you know what I mean? It's
USDA
funny.
began setting grade standards for the external appearances of certain foods. For example, no more than 4% of peas in a can of canned peas could be discolored. And in order for apples to be graded as US extra fancy, they must be colored 50% striped or partially red.
Wow.
These grading standards determine the quality of food based solely on appearance.
Oh my God, that's wild.
But throughout this time,
So you could have a perfectly juicy, wonderfully nutritious fruit, and if it's not colorful enough, it could be wasted, essentially. Oh my
journalists continued to
Wow.
uncover more harmful properties associated with dyes and ingredients used in food, drug, and cosmetic products. Then, in 1937, disaster struck. A Tennessee drug company began advertising the benefits of a new drug to treat infections. But the product was untested and was found to have toxic ingredients after over 100 patients died. The newly created FDA quickly enacted the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. And unlike the 1906 law, only the use of certified dyes would be permitted by law. Regulations continued to strengthen, and the list of certified colors was frequently updated due to safety concerns.
There are 9 certified colors that are approved for use in the United States. And
Okay.
the FDA has a chart.
Yeah, I recognize most of these after, between my wife and I, both, looking into health and what, what should be safe to intake and what we should be avoiding. Yeah, I recognize most of these, especially like, red number 40, yellow number 5, blue number 1. You see these a lot.
And colors.
And these colors are prominent across the food industry, even in foods you may not expect.
This is
When you
what
think
I'm
about
in a
the
treat
color
for.
of typical pickles in a
How much of the store I'm shopping in has been a lie to me? Oh my God.
jar, you probably picture a bright yellow-green color
Yeah.
like these. Although pickles
these I
are
knew.
naturally green, this bright hue is the result of food dye.
Yeah.
Yellow dye
Yellow
number
5.
5 and 6. This dye keeps skin from fading while on shelves. Uncolored pickles, on the other hand, are much less vibrant and look like this.
Yeah.
Now, what color do you think of when it comes to oranges?
Unfortunately
Obviously
for
the
me,
color orange, right? But that isn't always the case. In warmer climates, ripe oranges are actually green.
That's kind of
And
cool.
many residents of equatorial communities have never even seen an orange in
Wow.
food stands.
Dude,
Only
how
in
wild.
cooler temperatures does this green pigment die off, revealing an orange color.
Wow.
However, consumers in these areas associate green with an unripe fruit. So, in order
Oh
to
my
make
goodness.
oranges sellable in the US and European market, farmers in warmer states like Florida, where 70% of the US citrus supply comes from,
Right.
and Texas, often artificially dye them orange.
Oh my God.
However,
how
the
wild.
dye is banned in California and Arizona.
Okay. Well, that's
Salmon
good.
is another unsuspecting food that relies on dyes to make sale.
So if you really wanted to be a purist, if I'm hearing that right, you would want to buy oranges from Arizona or California for Americans out there. Okay. Kind of cool.
Unlike wild salmon that is naturally pink, farm-raised salmon is naturally gray. The meat from wild salmon is pink because their diet consists of naturally pigmenting compounds from krill and shrimp. But farmed salmon are fed food pellets with astaxanthin, an FDA-approved dye, in order to turn them pink.
Wow.
This is because
Oh my
consumers have
goodness.
been shown to prefer darker shades of pink and will pay up to $1 more per pound for a darker color compared to lighter hues.
Wow.
Fish is a huge problem when it comes to deception. You've got fish that's caught in Alaska, for example, sent to Asia for manipulation, sent back to Alaska, and then sent to the States for
Oh my
consumption
God.
in sushi bars.
What a mess, right?
Some wheat breads, cheeses, and others contain dyes as well.
By regulating this kind of food coloring or the use of food dyes, government is trying to protect people's health by stopping the introduction of harmful substances. But at the same time, this kind of regulation was adjusted so that this regulation does not affect the food industry in a devastating way. They don't want to ban or prohibit all of the synthetic dyes or prohibit the entire food coloring process.
Today, some companies are experimenting by slowly removing synthetic dyes from foods. Instead, they're
Good.
moving towards the less vibrant natural
dyes.
For example,
Now, luckily, yes, I have seen only modern, like super modern, like the last 3 or 4 years, I have seen some products in the U.S. That do advertise and show natural dyeing in the product. And that's a step in the right direction. So let's hope that's a trend that continues and spreads way more widespread than it has been for the last, decades on end. So this is really interesting. We're almost done here. Comment, how this relates to you, where you're from, or if it doesn't relate at all, and if you're laughing at, us deceived Americans right now.
Subway recently stated it would stop using artificial dye to color banana peppers and use
Okay.
turmeric to maintain the bright yellow appearance instead.
Okay.
And Panera Bread removed the use of dye in its mozzarella cheese, which turned it from having a bright white color to a yellowish hue.
The standard the government uses is a reasonable standard. So they don't have to be foolproof, 100% proven safe, but they have to be shown to be reasonably safe. So we allow these little exceptions to the 100% rule, or no risk rule, in order to accommodate a modern food system of having foods that are manufactured in different colors and taste and a variety of foods. But the problem with that is, beyond just the questions of deception and safety, is the question of, is this the kind of food system we want?
Yeah, that is a question, isn't it? Always a interesting question. Do we want our food extremely safe because we're dealing with human lives here, or do we want them just partially safe? As long as they're somewhat safe. That is the American way, isn't it? So there you go. That is why the U.S. government decides to color our food. Very, very bizarre. And I knew this was happening to an extent, but I feel like they didn't even show all of the examples. I'm sure more than we think is happening here. That was very interesting. Again, eye-opening on stuff like this. These are always, especially for me, a learning experience. And the world is just an interesting place because it can be so different. And the U.S. is a great place. I do love my home country. But I tell you what, man, that this whole, I've never been like this, but the whole blind patriotism to the U.S., best at everything, right? It is very short-sighted, very goofy. And the more I learn, the more I realize how funny that is, because we are not the best at a lot of things, nowhere near. And a lot of other countries are just so much more logical with how they approach things like food, something you literally survive on and provides, it's supposed to provide longevity to you. Sometimes the U.S. just kind of lacks things like that. It's very bizarre. With that being said, guys, please check out the description for this original video, and otherwise you can interact with my channel. Leave a thumbs up on this video if it entertained you, or maybe you learned a thing or two, and subscribe, join our amazing community, and see more interesting videos like this in the future. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, guys, stay safe, and I'll catch you later.